trying to make sense of things. These days, I'm sure that you guys have been questioned by your potential buyers or sellers. You're thinking about it every time you go to the gas station or you turn on the TV as to how good or how bad things are, what's coming down the pipeline. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit of data and information so that we can, with have easier time understanding what we're looking at, all right? So are we at the footsteps of a recession? Typically, that's what it comes down to. Are we seeing difficulties with economy? Are we gonna get a economic downturn and so forth, so on? First of all, it's not an easy question to answer. And the basis of that is because our economic system is simply too big and complex for a simple answer at this point in time. So be mindful of simplified answers, all right? That is important to remember. Things are fluid, things change, and economic forecasting is not as precise of a science as is other sciences. Yes, later on, when we look in the rear view mirror, we can say how things went, why, and so forth, but looking into the future is a different situation. So with that said, let's start by considering that the answer requires a scale because there are different factors that weigh in differently. And one of those things that we need to discuss is on one side, we have a war that's going on right now. It is causing disruption of global supply chains, which were already tangled by 2 years of global pandemic. It's easy to understand that with, for example, economic sanctions on Russia with their oil exports and so forth, so on, things are gonna change as we like it or not. There is a storm of price hikes in almost every product category. From your groceries to your gas to your food that you eat at the restaurants and so forth. And central banks globally are hiking the interest rates, trying to curb the inflationary trends that we all feel, as well as we, in our business, we see increase of mortgage rates. I mean, these are things that you cannot ignore. We see it. We feel it on our skin, and whether or not we like it, it is in the back of our mind that what's going on, this does not look good. But on the other hand, there are other factors, such as the GDP is growing at the highest rates in nearly 40 years right now. If you look at this graph, the GDP right now is above 10%. After adjusting it down, it is closer to 5.7% after adjustment. Now that is probably second highest going back to 1984, okay? So the GDP, which is mark of economic production of the country, seems to be very robust right now. We also have 70% of this activity contributed to consumer spending. Although we talk about gloomy economy, everyone feels the price hikes on their skin and so forth, but the consumer continues spending. That's the interesting part. If you look at the consumer spending right now, we are on track going to prior to pandemic at $16.7 trillion monthly personal consumption expenditures. There was a dip that we had during the start of the pandemic, but not only we have climbed back, but we are continuing at the same high rate. Okay, so consumers see what's going on. They don't like it. They are complaining about price hikes and so forth, so on. But yet, consumer spending continues. All right. Again, worried consumers can push the economy towards recession if and when they cut spending. But you look at today's job data and you see a whole different picture. The unemployment is at 3.6%, practically at the same rates as we were at before the pandemic. And the number of job openings, there are a very high number of 11.3 million openings right now. So there are more jobs to fill. Now, the conversation is not as to why people are working or not working. Oh, people got their pandemic incentives and so forth, so on. That's not the conversation. The conversation is that people who are working, they have security in their jobs and there are more jobs to be had right now. And the consumer spending is continuing for right now. So you look at it, what are we concluding from this bigger picture? We are not in a recession right now. Okay, we are not in a recession right now. The next 3 to 6 months consumer spending will be more indicative of what will be coming down the pipeline. And when we say 6 months, just take a look at the calendar. Let's see if we will have a robust holiday season. Let's see how the sales are going to go. So it is difficult to pinpoint that we are at a recession or we are going to see a recession for sure. Any one of these factors are fluid, things might change, all right? But yes, we feel it, we talk about the negative aspects of it, but we spend differently. I don't know if there are those of you who are aware of high price ticket items like Rolex watches are in such a short supply. You have to be in line for at times years to get a Rolex watch. So, which sounds like what we went through with real estate, 10, 20 offers on an over $1 million properties. So consumers are still doing what they've been doing, and we should be mindful of that. We are not in a recession right now. Let's not implement doom and gloom strategy. What matters for us realtors to remember is that there's a real estate market in every kind of economy, and we are here to serve our clients. With that said, I want to thank you guys for your time. I hope you found this information somewhat helpful. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.